This is what if naofumi Iwatani from the Rising of the Shield Hero had the boosted gear from High School DxD. The boosted gear is a powerful gauntlet that doubles your power as you see fit. Naofumi Iwatani in this version trained his whole life because he wanted to be a bodybuilder when he grew up. He's grown up and he's actually won a couple competitions. So yeah, he's actually pretty jacked, although he hides it. And his shield, when he actually was found, here's what happened. He told the story about how he actually got his little brother in line. In this version, his little brother actually threw a punch at him. His little brother didn't know that Naofumi was in boxing. Yes, some of you might know what I'm doing with this. So his little brother punched him in the face. Naofumi returned with a punch to the head. The head is the strongest part of the body. Don't even try messing with me, that's actual fact. Yes, it is. And Naofumi basically just taps his head and he's like, ow, 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 ow. Because, yeah, it's a little brother thing. They get hurt for the stupidest reasons. But his little brother wasn't faking it. That was a strong hit because Naofumi was strong. Real strong, like, basically terrifyingly strong. Hold on a second. Okay, I just found a better picture because this looks a lot better. So I'll get into what happened at this point later. So Naofumi, he is basically just completely freaked out. In this version, he doesn't land on his face like he did in canon. He actually does the hero landing that basically he does in canon on the boat, which is where you basically land on one knee standing, and your fist. He lands like this, and he's actually learned how to fight in multiple forms of combat. He actually was, I'm going to say, enrolled in the military, because that sounds awesome. Although it's the Japanese one, so yeah. You know, America is seen as a playground, while in anime Japan is seen as a battleground. Yeah, he's actually one of the strongest guys. And he can fight with literally anything. He can use a sheet of paper and kill a man with a katana while breaking the katana, and the sheet of paper will be fine. Sorry about that. So he's not a stranger to fighting. He actually is a master, where he's actually able to break a blade and make it seem like that blade is made of paper. So yeah. And Naofumi, like I said, he has the boosted gear, which is pretty useful. So here's how it awakens. He wakes up and this is after he's betrayed. He gets up and he asks where he is, and he actually knows about royalty and how to act around them, because I'm going to say kings and queens still exist in his universe because they still exist in our current universe. So when they were brought into the king, he's the first one to bow on one knee, like how people are supposed to around royalty. And the other heroes ask what he's doing. He says, even heroes must bow to those of royalty. And the king is shocked by this. And in this version, the king isn't going to be as much of a jerk because, well, the shield hero seems a lot different, and he seems to be one of the better heroes, but he's still going to be a real trashy person, like he is in canon. So sorry, but I'm not changing that. So here's what happens. Naofumi, they all get something to eat, go to bed, talk about their stuff. Naofumi's intrigued about what his stuff can do, so he asked all of them about the games, where they're talking about it, and I'm going to say he was a little bit of a gamer, and he said, yeah, I played a game like that once, but not that fun. I chose the spear class, got wrecked, chose the sword class, got wrecked, chose the bow class, got absolutely wrecked. Every time I chose a weapon, it was completely useless. And then I chose the shield class. That one was pretty much broken, so I'm pretty glad I got that. And they're like, wait, what? A universe where the shield is actually powerful? And he says the name of the game is called Rise of the 4 heroes. And every hero, their most powerful asset is their mind. They all say about their game, and they say how the shield hero, well, he has a harsher storyline than the rest. He's actually a lot more powerful for that. But the others don't have the same thing, because in their world, shield heroes just know. Hold on, give me a second. Sorry about that. My dog thought it'd be a good idea to come into my room. Water, good for you. Anyway, Naofumi actually talks to the other heroes. They all figure out they're from different multiverses. And Naofumi talks to the heroes about training. And before they pick I'm going to change some stuff. Naofumi actually knows a lot about games, and well, I'm going to say that while Naofumi was reading a book, he actually talks to them about how he thinks he knows better ways for them to use their weapons. Which, these are real life weapon modifications I'm going to give them. For the sword hero, he talks to the sword hero about being better coursed into pivoting and blocking with a sword. And the sword hero understands, and Naofumi wields a wooden stick, and he's easily combating the sword hero with his sword. And this is right after they wake up, so Naofumi is talking to the other heroes. Give me a second. I have to respond to a comment. Okay, where was I? Yeah. This little thing I'm making up to happen. So, the shield hero, Naofumi, puts the shield on his back. And the other heroes say we can move the weapons around our bodies. Naofumi's saying, I think it's just mine, because y'all can actually let go of y'all's weapons. I can't. They say, cool, cool. And Naofumi picks up a normal old branch, a couple of them, which is kind of weird for people to do, but they just say, whatever, it's probably what he's probably telling us stuff about our weapons, since he did drop the thing about him being a master at weapons, spears, swords, and every weapon, so they said, okay, he's probably just going to teach us more about our weapons. And Naofumi does. I'm going to say that any legendary hero can wield the other's weapon if the other allows them to. But Naofumi says, we're sparring, come on. And then the sword hero goes against Naofumi, and Naofumi takes a normal old stick and was able to stop the sword hero, Rin, and basically mess him up a little bit, but nothing the healing magic couldn't do, which Naofumi, I'm going to make him OP in this, has it from the beginning. He says, Zweit, heal. Which, Zweit is second heal. So you have first heal, second heal, and third heal. Adult is third heal, which is made to target a lot of people. Okay, yeah, I'm not gonna run down the magic in this world. Y'all probably know it if you're a big old anime fan. Which, Naofumi thinks, what am I gonna do? Perfect. And he actually is able to de-arm the sword hero and hits him in the stomach with a punch, showing that he could swing his sword by swinging it twice for no reason and punching him in the stomach. And then the fight was over. Naofumi said, you need to work on your swordsmanship and a lot on how you're going to swing the sword, because swords aren't really unbreakable, they're just tougher. So the sword hero duly notes that. Then the bow hero steps up, me next, and Naofumi says, you're good, but what if someone gets too close to you? And Itsuka says, I don't know. So Naofumi kind of attaches a blade at the end, which is very useful, to a spearman, since they'd actually real life use that, called a spear bow, which is where you actually have a bow that you can grip at the end to stab people while they get too close, which is what is actually had. And then Itsuki's actually able to keep up hand to hand and from far distances. Naofumi has his shield out, blocking hits from far away, so Itsuki can get better with his archery, and he tells him speed up, but make sure to stay calm. And this is what happens. So yeah, they all actually have hits that are pretty powerful, but not powerful enough. Then you have the Spear Hero, which Itsuki is the Bow Hero, Rin is the Spear Hero, Rin is the Sword Hero, and Motoyasu is the Spear Hero, while Naofumi the Shield Hero. And then Naofumi says, "Okay, come at me," and he picks up a long stick, and the Spear Hero's like, "Okay." And the Spear Hero actually tries stabbing Naofumi with the jab, and Naofumi dodges out of the way, gripping the spear, moving it around, and poking him with the stick, saying, "That could have killed you." And he does this repetitively, saying, "You might want to work less on your big old fancy attacks and more on your fast hits, because if you don't, you're gonna die." Motoyasu notes that very well, which he won't be as much of a jerk in this version, and they're actually going to believe Naofumi. And in this world, he actually has a pendant, which is just a necklace he has, which they call it a pendant because that's what back in that time necklaces were called. So it's just a normal old necklace that that's shaped like a bullet covered in skulls. And they all see this because they were all able to move him enough to where it would pop out of his shirt. And they asked what it was. He said it was something that he was gifted from his family, which I'm not sure who to make it from, but yeah. So it's not really any important thing, but you will see how how it kind of affects something. So now for me, that's when they all say the king has requested to see you once more, and Naofumi's like, "Okay, that's all for today, guys." Which they all worked on their techniques, but Naofumi didn't work on his, but he did heal all of them because they got very badly hurt. So that's how that goes. Okay, now, when they get the thing, exactly no one chooses Naofumi, but a couple adventurers are walking in to the king's, to where they said to go, if you want to join the heroes. And being that Naofumi actually is smart about this world in this version, so a couple people will want to join him. These are regular old adventurers. I'm going to say just common adventurers, but they won't really stay around for long. They were gold people who wanted just money without doing any work. Naofumi noticed this and actually trains them to where they can actually fight. They leave him and go for the Spear Hero. And here's how it goes. Naofumi gets 2 people on his team. He says, "Okay, let's train." This is when they all train and they say, "Ow, ow," because they've never do work in anything. They just want money. So Naofumi says, "I might not be the best hero suited for you. You might want to go for one that's more into collecting gold for doing small work, instead of one like me, who goes for the adventure." And Naofumi says this, and they say, "Okay." And then they go to the Spear Hero. Spear Hero declines them because if Naofumi couldn't whip him into shape, then he doesn't think he could. And then you have the Bow Hero. They go to the Sword Hero. He says, "Leave me alone. You're too weak. If neither of them could train you, I can't." Which really he was just talking about Naofumi, but he said the Spear Hero because getting let down by the Spear Heroes kind of sucks, being that they're women. Yes, because the Spear Hero was one of those type of guys. And then, after they leave the Sword Hero, they go to the Bow Hero. The Bow Hero acts like this. "I don't think you'd work well. and then just asks them to leave. And then they leave. That's all that happens. They're still actually after all the heroes' money, but in this version they actually made a deal with that princess, the one in this picture, bottom left, right under the king. Yeah, that's her. She gets the great idea to try going after one of the heroes with their money. And here's how it works. Now, Fumi, this version, she actually does go and join his team again. He says, I think you'd be more happy with the spear hero. She says, nonsense, how are you going to fight without someone with you? He says, I'll be fine. I can fight pretty well. And they're actually asking for proof because they didn't know that he was training with the other heroes. And the other heroes back him up saying, he's stronger than we are. Y'all trust me, y'all can't beat him. And they actually are like, who is this dude? A shield hero that's actually strong? Who would think that's possible? Which is what they actually say. Now Fumi, not caring, gets into a little bit of a match with some adventurers that requested to fight him because they don't like the shield hero. And then they absolutely get demolished with him not even using his shield to block their attacks. And they say, the shield is worthless because it can't even do what it's supposed to do, block. Navmi said, I can block anything y'all throw at me. And then the princess takes this as an opportunity to throw a magical attack at him. He blocks and said, see, I can block anything y'all throw at me. They say, fine, you can be on your own. They all go to the same place, and in this version, some messed up stuff is going to happen. He actually, in this version, decides drinking doesn't really work for him, so he's just going to save some money. But he does want something nice to have, so he has a good old beer. He has some good drinks, and he says it tastes great. Although it didn't do anything, and they all noticed this, so yeah. And Naofumi finds that he doesn't really get affected by alcohol, not even in this magical world. So he just says whatever, and starts getting back to what he was doing. And he had been training, and in this version he had already unlocked level 3 by punching really hard. Here's how their stats were. In canon, you had like Naofumi with 12 attack, and with like 1 attack, and a couple, and like 69 defense. The spear hero, 69 attack, and about 38 defense. The sword hero, 68 attack with 30 defense. The bow hero would be at the bottom with 65 attack and about 15 defense. This is all of them when they all get to the world in canon. In this version, it's 79 attack for the spear hero, 79 attack for the sword hero, 79 attack for the sword hero, and 500 attack for the shield hero. And then you get their defense. Sadly, basically they all go to around the same, but the bow hero actually has more in this department because he had been taught how to defend himself by Naofumi. So Naofumi says, okay. And then it says he has... So it says this that the spear hero has 70 defense. The sword hero has 70 defense, and basically all the other heroes are at this for attack 69, and for their defense it's 70. Actually, it's 70 for attack and 70 for defense. Now Fumi is 500 for attack, 800 for defense, and they're all at level 1. And this is without the added bonus of their weapons, which are all a minimal 555, because their weapons are very weak. And then Naofumi gets to what he was doing, which is well, in this version, after he eats his dinner, he goes to train in his room, which in the military, you have to be smart enough to know if there's even a crack at your door, you're waking up soldier, which is actually how it works in the military. So, yeah. Now, Fumi hears his door open, he opens his eyes and is ready for a combat, but he doesn't. But then he wakes. Then he remembers nothing's happening. So he says, "How can I help you?" And the princess had closed the door and ran back to her room, which Naofumi found odd, but he said, "Whatever, I don't know who it was." And he locks his door and puts a chair in front of it. In this version, he doesn't get any of his pendant stays around his neck as he sleeps, and he also has a dog tag, which is what they're called. In the military, they'll give you one. I'm thinking that's how the Japanese one works too. I'm not really sure. So now for me is just asleep with these two necklaces on his neck. And he's got his new armor, which, if you're wondering what I mean by new armor, I'm going to say they had said you have to have at least someone on your team. So he says fine to the princess. So yeah, which he doesn't really care. He planned on just training alone and getting help if needed. And yeah, he doesn't really care much, so he just does his normal thing. He goes back to sleep and he wakes, and at this point he actually has a conversation with the other heroes saying, "That was good training." They all say, "So what level did y'all get to?" The spear hero said he got to level 5. The bow hero said he got to level 3. And the sword hero said he got to level 4. Just based on their attack abilities. And then Naofumi says, "Wow, cool, man." And he says, "I got to level 6. And they're like, "Wow, you're the highest level out of all of us." And he says, "Well, my base form was probably still stronger than y'all." They say, "Check it." They all say, like, the spear hero with the highest says 100 attack and 98 defense. And Naofumi says, "Still weaker than I was at the beginning of this." And they say, "Wow, yeah, man." And they all basically say that. It's funny, and then they all go to bed. I'm going to say the heroes have that same thing about they can't be together, that's why they're weak, which is actually a thing they had, so yeah. Now, Fumi, in this version, then he goes to bed, and when he wakes up, his armor, same as in canon, disappeared. But in this version, his necklace and his dog tag disappeared. So he wakes up and he says, "What?" Because I'm going to say that there was actually something put in his drink that he didn't notice. While he is a master of knowing how to cancel out poisons, this wasn't a poison, it was just something to mess with his mind, which did its job. Also magically, so he couldn't really block it with his physical ability, so yeah, he couldn't do anything to stop it. Now Fumi wakes, basically says, "What was that?" And he actually wants to he told her when he got up, and she said, "Okay," which is actually in this version 4 o'clock in the morning when he works out. In this version, he talks to the innkeeper about how his stuff went missing from his room, and how his room was busted in. The innkeeper said, "Okay," and didn't really care. Then he's basically hit by some of the guards, which basically take him into the castle, and he says, "All my stuff went missing, even the stuff that I got from my family and from my service to my country." And then you see Motoyasu walk in with that stuff on his neck, because Motoyasu didn't actually see either of them when he was fighting Naofumi. I mean, yeah, I got out of his shirt, but he didn't see it, and he thought it was just something normal, because she said it was something normal. And then Naofumi says, "Give it back, Moriyasu. I thought we were friends." And Moriyasu says, "What are you talking about?" Naofumi says, "My stuff." Because Moriyasu was wearing all Naofumi's stuff. And Naofumi basically, and Moriyasu, and the spear here, the sword hero and bow hero said, yeah man, that is his stuff. And he says, sorry man, I didn't see it. It was a gift from her. And just like, wow. And they read what was on it. It said, Naofumi Iwatani for the dog tag. And the other thing, it was one of a kind, so yeah, no one's really making a copy of it. Anyway, yeah, that's what happened. So he's kicked out and gets that same thing and gets the whole charge for rape and all that, which is stupid. And he actually says and he just doesn't care, so he gets back to what he was doing, though with a lot less of his stuff, because all he was able to get back was his dog tag and his necklace, which was more than enough for him. Now, whenever he's in battle, he doesn't care what happens as long as he's fine and the stuff is fine. And then in this version, when he gets to the slave trader, yeah, because those guys had still challenged him, not knowing what he could do. And they all regretted it, because in this version, they didn't just simply get a hit blocked by him and then start running. Well, in this time, he didn't need any of those balloons. What he does is starts going to working on his attack. Since, yes, he's still stronger, but he was still able to be pushed around, which was not good. In this version, Moriyasu had actually apologized and didn't grab him. Instead, the person who grabbed him was a couple guards. And Naofumi just went to what he was doing and started just doing training. So now here's the slave traders, so give me a second. So in this version, these are all three of them. They're all getting picked up by Naofumi, not just Raphtalia, because they were all just as sick as Naofumi, not Naofumi, as Raphtalia was. So he gets all three of them, pays what is needed. In this version, they're all a lot worse, because, yeah, they were all about to die, so, yeah. Naofumi gets them all the medicine they need, and then they're all fine. Hold on. Okay, so back to what was happening. He gets all three of them, and they all start to and he trains with all, and he trained them all in how to fight and all that, so they're really safe. And he taught them not to be afraid of animals, and blood is normal, so they're all fine with being around blood, unlike Raphtalia was. So now for me, and the reason he actually got help, he joined the slave thing, was because he thought there could be someone in trouble, so he would help. So now for me gets to what he was doing, and he gets to work, which means he's taking care of all of them. And they're all different types of demi-humans, and they all in this version have shaggy hair like Raphtalia did. He gives them all a haircut and all that, and they're all a lot better after getting healed. Hold on a second. Okay guys, I'm back. So, yeah. Now, Fumi, they all get training, and in this version, they all had a similar way of being parted from their parents. They all were together in this version. So, now Fumi is training them, and they had to kill rabbits and all that, and they did, which they found to be fine, but Naofumi said, if anything bad happens, I can help. I can do a lot more damage, so he does. And they all get knives, and Naofumi actually said these should work, and they're all really good with said knives. So Naofumi teaches them a lot more about said knives, and they're all basically the exact same make and model of the one Raphtalia had. So Naofumi's actually training them all this way in how to block and defend with weapons. I'm going to say in canon, because the thing about losing XP, if there's more than a certain people on your team, you're only able to have 5 extra. There's only able to be a team of 6. In this version, there's going to be able to be a team of 7, just 8, because the queen is joining Naofumi's team in this version. So here's how it works. They all start to train. Hold on, back to the video. Okay, back to the video. So Naofumi. Hold on, guys, give me a second. Yeah, it's a lot better. So Naofumi gets back to what he was doing, and their training and all that. They're all at this point level 5. Nah, they've been with him for about a week or 2, so they're actually level 20. And Naofumi at this point is like level 50. So the heroes, they don't have to have the same thing that the normal adventurers do, but when they reach level 40, that's when monsters and adventurers have all their gap. But for heroes, their gap is 150. So yeah, Naofumi's gonna get OP. All the other heroes haven't even reached level 20 yet. So they're all training, and then they know that they're really needing some money, so they go into the mine. And they start mining jewels, and this time all 3 of the little girls are actually just keeping lookout, and they all have little knives at this point, like little short swords, not long swords, but short swords, which are bigger than knives. So yeah, they're all using that. And Naofumi keeps a knife on his side because he knows it'll shock him, but he can still grip it on and take a swing, which he knows it'll hurt a lot, but he can do it. And when he was betrayed is when the boosted gear awakened. He was mad, and the boosted gear awakened. He can boost, though he doesn't use the boosted gear. Yeah, scratch that. This isn't what if Naofumi had the boosted gear. This is what if all 3 of Raphtalia's friends went with Naofumi instead of just Raphtalia. So Naofumi gets to work and starts and back to what I was saying, Naofumi's doing the mining, and he starts just picking all the, shards that he's taken up, and he stores them all in his shield, which is overpowered at this point, because he's been killing a lot of different monsters, even dragons, bears, wolves. Any monster that opposed him would instantly be destroyed by a punch or a chop, even a slash if he actually had to, which he doesn't have the same limiter that all the other heroes does, because I'm going to say he's just special that way. He's made different, so he actually is able to wield any weapon at will, unlike the other heroes who can only wield their respective weapon. Naofumi gets that whole thing where and then after that apparently that whole time skip thing happens where Raphtalia looks a little bit older, where all the girls in this version look older, and not just Raphtalia, all of them have that kind of build that Raphtalia does. Can you say, wow? Wow. Yeah, that kind of build. And in this version, now for me feeding them all full meals and all this, they're actually in really good health. And now for me, he rarely fights using a weapon, but he can use a weapon anytime he wants. He carries a long sword with him. And we're saying in this version they actually already got a cart. They know about Philolios and all that, but they don't have Philo yet, so they just grab a cart and grip onto it. And now Fumi is the one who pulls the cart, which people think it looks weird that a human is doing so much work, while 3 demi-human girls are standing right there, but they don't question it. They have these slave crest things, but it doesn't really matter, because now Fumi doesn't use them on the girls unless they're being, unless he's trying to get them to do something that is safer for them. Like if he's telling them to run away, they want to stay by his side, forgetting that he's overpowered. He'll command them to go, and they'll go. Then he'll come back. Then he'll go to them saying, "If I say something, that means it's best for everyone." Now Fumi is getting to work. Then that whole thing happens where the whole wave and all that happens. He learns more from that weapon guy, which actually is a lot more helpful in this version because he's one of the devoted members of the Shield. Because he knows what happens if you aren't. Because when Naofumi was walking in Canon, he had picked the dude up, and it was Naofumi's sad eyes that made the dude not punch him. In this version, it was the fact that Naofumi picked him up off his feet and stuck him to the wall and said, "Gonna punch me for something I didn't do, why don't I hit you?" Which the dude's actually apologized and all that. He gets the same thing and all that. So now for me, when the wave happens, here's exactly what happens. In canon, they're defending the town. They're still defending the town, but in this version, all three of them are defending the town, while now Fumi is also defending the town, but in a little bit of a different way. Now Fumi's getting all the monsters to him and starting to hit him real hard, and in this version, he doesn't just block what that big monster threw. In this version, when the fire is happening, Naofumi does something a little different, since it's not just one person which you can block, it's three. So he calls them all to him, and he says, "This is gonna hurt a lot," and he covers them all with his own body, taking burn after burn after burn, but not really that painful since he just heals himself afterwards. He just yells "recover," which is enough for him to recover. So he starts going back to what he was doing, which is hitting monsters, breaking monsters apart, and all that. And he's like really annoyed, waiting for all the heroes to be done fighting. So he says, "Forget it," and starts destroying all the monsters and stuff. When the wave finally is over, because the final boss was defeated, he was the most tired because he was defending an entire city. He was tired in canon, but in this version, the reason he was more tired, even though he's a lot stronger, because he took a blast that killed a lot of heavy damage dealing monsters. They killed a lot of monsters with his body, which, he basically pulls basically he's blocking the whole time, so he puts the shield on his face so he can block with his body, and they are all hiding behind him. And the shield being on his face is because he doesn't want to get scars on his face, but that's what happens. So when he removes the shield from his face and puts it back on his arm, he notices that his entire body is covered in burns. And he says, "This is going to hurt a lot tomorrow." And then when the whole banquet thing is happening, they're all getting their food. Naofumi doesn't want anything like in canon, and the princess does the same thing, saying he has slaves, which gets the spear hero to fight him. The spear hero said, "I thought you were a better person." He said, "Better person? You really want to say that?" In this version, in this version, it's not just raphtalia that gets grabbed; it's all three of them, which promptly Naofumi gets right up in their face, saying, "Hurt them and you die," which is enough for him to go boom. And then he actually gets into a boxing match with all the heroes and all that. In this version, he says, "I'm sorry, but their safety is my top priority. Either help me or get hurt," which they say, "Just agree to the duel, man. It'll be the lot faster way." And they see how thick-headed that the spear hero is, that none of them can get through to him. And the king orders Naofumi to either do the duel or she'll be taken from him by force. So he says, "Fine." And then the spear hero says, they say, if you are pinned or are unable to fight, you lose. So Naofumi says, this should be easy enough. And he picked up a spear, a sword, and all the weapons. There's like, you can't use any of these. This will be hilarious. Naofumi picks up the sword and says, you better get chopped in half. And goes to swing, and the spear hero puts his shield out, basically almost snapping the shield, but not really. It just sends the shield hero flying with a swing. He basically throws the sword away and throws the sword to the wall, takes the spear up and says, let's go, spear versus spear. And they're both going even with the spear because he's holding back. And then Naofumi basically snaps the spear out of Moriyasu's hand, steps on it, punches Moriyasu in the face, which is enough to send him flying back without his spear. Naofumi is holding the spear. In this version, it doesn't work back to Moriyasu. It just stays in Naofumi's hand. So, yeah, Moriyasu's like, give it back. And it goes back to Moriyasu's hand when Naofumi drops it. He throws the spear he was using away because these are all bottom tier weapons that he was using, and he just throws them to the side after they break. And then he says, now it's time for a main event. He takes out the bow he had, and it's just like pew 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 pew, which is just arrow after arrow after arrow. And the spear hero is gonna be like, nope, no, 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 and just blocking them all with defense, and dodging them. That's the best he can do. And then spear stab after being dodged and hit and blocked and punched. The bow breaks because the string was too weak and it snapped. The wood snapped and the string was completely useless. So he says fine. He starts just picking the arrows up and starting to throw them like kunai, and then it's just like, you're kidding me, and just keep blocking and dodging. That's all he can do. And then once Naofumi's run out of arrows, he just throws the bag to the side and has a normal old shield. He picks up the normal old shield and starts blocking Moriyasu's attacks until the shield breaks. He just throws the shield to the side, takes his real shield, and he's already got the dragon one, but not really the dragon as normal. It's just his anger, not just the dragon's anger. And he punches Moriyasu with an angered hit, which is enough to send Moriyasu flying into a wall, basically almost unable to fight, but still standing up barely. So now Naofumi beats him till he's basically just a bloody pulp, and then stomp, stomp, stomp. But he doesn't do the whole bloody pulp thing. Both of them are basically at half. Moriyasu's at half health. This is when a couple different mages jump in to Moriyasu's defense and start throwing magical attacks, even the princess, which Naofumi basically using the power of chi, which I'm going to say he learned in martial arts. He uses the elements to move around and throws them just at the wall. They say he's attacking the innocent, and he says, no, just something I need to do real quick. And he's taking these blasts that are flying at him, and he's just sending them back inside. And one time, he just dips to the side and moves it to where it hits the spear hero, and the spear hero gets it flying. And the spear hero is barely standing at this point with a spear. At most, he's using a skill called the javelin one. Naofumi blocks it with his shield, and this version dodges to where it messes up his hand a little bit, but not much. And he punches the spear hero, knocking him completely out cold. And he's just standing with his foot on the spear hero, saying, you should have just listened, man. But then, there being a magic spell cast on him to win, and they call some bull, saying, you kept fighting after the duel was over, so you lose. They all get that seal removed, but he had actually asked them to join his party, so their names don't disappear. It's just not the same. They don't have the slave crest anymore, which he never used at this point, so he said, whatever. They all go to him and ask if he's alright. He says he's been betrayed, gets the more angered version of it, and unlocks the betrayal series, which he's already leveled high enough to use. and its corrosiveness on messing him up, he says no, which it does still a little bit, but not very much. Like, to the point where it's, like, not even happening, but, like, still slightly, like, same as normal anger. So he just says fine, they leave, and that's where I'm going to end it off. I'll get to the rest of it in part 2. Bye.